Having introduced Sinon into the equation here, we're starting to feel a little bit of pain in terms of using an event emitter. Let's change that around using the async library. As I mentioned, tests are going to lead us to using tools, in this case Sinon, and that is going to lead us to patterns in considering our design. In this case, using Sinon to spy on an event chain is not the easiest thing. There's probably a better way, and that's why tools and tests push us into different patterns and ways of doing things. So let's see what that would look like. In here, I'm going to remove all of this event stuff. It really isn't using Sinon or spying to its best advantage. It actually made me write a lot more code, and I don't really feel good about it. And when you're writing more code to support testing, that's a bit of a pain. So what I'd rather do is I'd rather do something a little bit more direct using the async library. So here I'm going to just commit my changes, and here I'm just adding a little thing about spying. And I am going to make sure that I merge in everything I just did because I'm going to check out a brand new branch using the async library in my review process. This is important. When you make a big change like this, please be sure that you do it inside of a branch. All right, well, let's plug in async. And I've already installed it using npm and a -- save. If you don't know what async is, let's head over to the repo and take a look at it. Basically, it allows you to work with a bunch of asynchronous functions in an organized way. There's two methods that are core. There's parallel, and there's also series. There's another one called map, but I'm not going to deal with that right now. If you want to know more, head over to the GitHub address that you see above. So parallel will execute a bunch of functions all at the same time, and then give you a single callback to respond to. Series will fire things one at a time. I have to change the way I'm working with the application or the membership application. I'm going to work on an instance level variable here. So I want to make sure that I have a dedicated review process instance for every application that needs to be processed. So that means I'm going to use a constructor. Here I just want to assert that an application was given to us, and if it was, then everything will be okay. Well, since I'm working with an instance level variable called app here, this is the membership application, I need to change the way that I am actually calling each one of the steps in the process. So instead of passing the app along, I'm just going to pass a callback. And that's a traditional Node kind of callback with an error and any data passed along. I can also remove the process endpoints here, accept application and deny application. I don't need them anymore, but I do need process application. I can remove the event chaining. This is great. I'm removing code. I think async might just have to stay. Wow. That's always good, man. When you can remove code because you're using a certain tool, hurrah. Well, here I'm not emitting. I just need to call next. In this case, if the app is valid, I'm just going to call next. There's no error. I'll just pass along the app. Same thing here. If there is an error, I'm going to pass that error along directly, and that'll be the validation message. And there will be no data to go along with it. This is a very typical Node call structure right here. If there's an error, you pass it along in the first argument. If there's any data, you pass it along in the second. There's no trickery here. There's no event emitting, nothing. All right. Well, that's it. For process application, I just need to call that directly. I don't need to pass in the app. But what I do need to do is I need to set up async. And I'm going to call async.series. In other words, I'm going to give you a bunch of functions, execute them one after the other. Each one of those functions will be called. However, one of them might have an error. If it does return an error, then this callback will be called directly, and I'll be able to handle that error as I'm doing here. If there is an error, I'll just say success is false, and then I will pass along any error message. Notice I am not returning the error itself. I don't want to throw. I don't want to have any assertions trip on this. Down below, in this case of success, I'm passing along null as the first argument. That would be any error that happened. Of course, there are none. And then the second, I'm just going to say the success is true and welcome to Mars. Okay, well, let's string together the functions that we're going to call, and they're just one after the other that you've seen above. So the first one that I want to call is ensure role compatible. And the next one I'll call here directly is find next mission, then role is available. This is all the stuff that you saw me do in the event chain, but in this case, I'm just passing the functions in an array, and they will be executed in the order of the array. My next task here is to deal with all this event stuff and spying. I'm going to take it all out for right now because I just changed a bunch of stuff around. I'm going to skip all of the spy tests down below. I just want to make sure that it returns success as I expect. And then I just need to pass along the membership application in the constructor because I changed the way the API worked, if you recall. All right, well, that looks pretty good. Let's give this a whirl and see if I did things right. Nope. Oh boy, I wish I could spell. You know, sometimes I just get going so fast when I start refactoring, I misspell words like it. And well, almost. Okay, can't read property is valid of undefined. Well, let's see. Looks like we have a bit of a problem here. Again, just a naming of an argument. It should be args.application, not app. And wow, look at that, it worked. Yay! Well, you know what? Few small spelling errors, that doesn't really count. It's almost as if I practiced these demos. Crazy. Okay. Now that I've done this, we can go back and we can set up our spy the way it should be. So here, I'm going to spy on review and ensure app valid. This is what I wanted to do in the first place before. This time, however, I can call things directly and do things in a simpler fashion. So down below here, I can just say review.ensureAppValid.called. I don't need to interrogate a separate variable like I did before. So I can change each assertion down below here by interrogating the review object and the function directly, making sure that it was called with .called. That looks pretty good. Let's take off those skips and go back and run our test. Do you think it's going to work? Let's see. And it does. That makes me happy. Let's go back and take a look at our code. Take a look at that. It's nice and clean. Single assertions. They make sense. This is what you're going for. You're going for something that feels good. And there's no other way I can put it. Do your tests feel good? Well, there's more we can do here. Let's see. Async allows us to work with arrays of functions as you see here, but there's a cleaner way. Let's take a look at that. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create a brand new method called approveApplication. That's going to take a callback, just like the rest of our steps above. And for right now, I'm just going to pass along true without an error. Why would I do this? Well, down below here, we are using a kind of brute force way of working with async, passing in an array of functions. I don't need to do that. I can actually name these functions if I want by passing in an object. Each one of these keys is going to be passed back to us. The value of each one of these keys is going to be the return value of the function if it doesn't cause an error. So success is going to be true in this case. How can I use this? Well, I can just pass result along as you see me do here. Now let's be sure to pass along our message as well. I don't need to set a success flag because, as you can see here, success is being set by async using the approveApplication function. So let's take a look at what this looks like. I'll console.log it to make sure I did it right. Well, not really. I've got a problem here. There's a lot of extra stuff here. It looks like I'm not passing back the data I need to pass back. That's because I forgot to change things around. Specifically, you can see I'm passing the app back here. I should be passing the result of role compatible. It should be probably true, I guess. Either that or some kind of role. I think for now, I can probably just set it to true, and I'll do the same above. Role is available, I'll just pass back true. And here, instead of setting the mission variable in the app, I'm just going to pass back the mission itself. Man, things are getting really easy. So app valid, I'll pass back true as well. So let's log the result, and I want to see the message output as well to make sure everything is formatted right. Look at that. Man, things just got so easy all of a sudden. I love that. Just by simply using a different approach. Specifically, I removed the event emitter in favor of something a little simpler, which was to have a review process instance powered by async. In this case, our tests and tools pushed us to a different pattern that actually made life a lot easier. And hopefully this is going to help our design, which will help our future tests. We'll see. In this module, we got started with simple unit testing and set up the structure of our module using a very basic pattern. We started testing our ideas, working with dates and moment.js, and then we got into behavior-driven design, BDD, with our review process. And finally, as you just saw, we cleaned things up with async and Sinon helping us out.